We're ready to go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this CET Japan info session and student artwork highlight webinar. We are really excited to not only tell you about the CET Japan program, but more importantly, to highlight the artwork of 3 of our recent alumni. I am Kate Maruyama. I am the Assistant Director here based in our Washington, D.C. office. I've been with CET since 2009. So our first cohort of students in Osaka was 2010. So I've been with CET since the very beginning. I was a Japanese major, studied in Japan, did the JET program, the whole works. So this is like a dream come true to be able to continue to do this in my professional life. And I'm thrilled to introduce you to my colleague and the 3 students that we're going to be hearing from today. Malika?
Hi, I'm Malika. I work for CET. I go back with CET Japan, not quite as far as Kate, but pretty far. I was a student on the CET Japan program my junior spring in 2012. I also served as the resident director for the program, and now I work on recruiting. So I get to talk about CET Japan every day, which is awesome. I will be mostly offering logistical support. So as you have questions or you want to pop things in the Q&A or the chat, feel free to do that. Kate and our students will be doing most of the talking today. We have 3 students with us. Kendall, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. My name is Kendall. I'm a junior currently. I did CET Japan spring of 2024, and I major in screenwriting and animation.
Samara, you want to continue?
Yeah, sorry. My name is Samara Mroczkowski. Samara is fine. I'm at WSU, or Washington State University. I'm majoring in art and Japanese, and I studied at CET last fall, the last semester.
Peyton.
Hi, I'm Peyton. I'm from Texas A&M, and I was also alumni from last semester with Samara. And my major is visualization with a minor in Japanese.
So briefly going over the curriculum for this program, we've got some exciting new changes that I want to make sure that all of you guys are aware of. A lot of the great same stuff that you know and love is still there as well. So summer is only Japanese language. So that is 9 credits of Japanese language in the full-time language pledge. In the fall and spring, if you want to do that, students can pick either 12 credits of Japanese or 6 credits of Japanese, and then you pick whatever combination of electives, CET Studio Arts and or OGU Direct Enroll courses that work for your interest and your schedule. So some examples of direct enroll courses are Japanese language electives, like, for example, Osaka dialect or understanding movies, as well as area studies courses that are taught in English from a lot of different subject matters. So for example, Japan's environmental issues, Japanese business culture and practices, Japanese culture and society, power of Japanese pop culture, history of Japanese digital games, many, many more. For CET courses, we have 2 studio art electives, and we're going to come back to this in a minute as we highlight the work of our 3 students joining us today. For housing, we have 2 to 10 people in apartments or share houses near campus. So near is a relative term in Japan. Anything kind of typically within a 45-minute commute in Japan is considered nearby. For all of our apartments are within 40-minute commute. Some are even as short as 20 minutes. All students have their own single room, and you're sharing the building with other CET students and with other OGU students who have also applied to be on this program with you guys alongside. And then sometimes also local neighbors. They're just local people that are also living in the same building. All the rooms have different setups, but there are very small kitchens. You can see in the pictures here, this is what a typical kitchen in Japan is like. Small shared bathrooms or even private bathrooms, depending on the exact setup. There is lots of opportunities also for you to get around in Osaka, take your learning outside of the classroom. Lots of activities and excursions. We know that Japan is a well-traveled country, so we try to take you on visits and outdoor experiences that are off the beaten path, right? You can go to Kyoto on your own. It's literally only 15 minutes away, right? You can go to downtown Osaka on your own. Again, only 15 minutes on your own. But we'll try to take you some places that you might not have thought to go to on your own. The local OGU students are also invited to these, and a lot of times these are places that they've also never been to. So here are some pictures here for where we've brought students in the past. Arashiyama is a place in Kyoto. The bamboo forest picture that you see there, along with Toei Kyoto Studio Park, hiking Mino waterfalls, seminar in a recreated ninja village, going to the Shimane Totori, the sand dunes that you see there. There's scavenger hunts with local roommates. There's takoyaki parties. There's tea ceremony. There's kendo. There's lots of different options for you to experience Osaka even outside of the classroom. Oh, hold on. Okay, so the electives. So these are our 2 studio electives that we have. Character design is the course that all 3 of our students here took today, and they're going to show you the artwork that they did. A new course that we have starting in the fall of 25 is manga creation. And this provides students with an introduction to manga illustrative comics as an art medium. So you can put on your resume that you have experience with a new technology, Clip Studio. So without further ado, we want to go ahead and feature some of the work that the students did in this character design course, where they are gaining foundation in the fundamentals of character design and illustration. So, Kendall, first up, these are the 2 gorgeous pieces that you created in the character design class. Tell me about this piece. What is the story behind it? What's the inspiration? What's the message? Tell us more about this piece.
The one on the left or the one on the right?
Both of them. We want to hear the story.
Oh, of course. So the one on the right with the water and the lily pads and stuff, our teacher at the time was saying that she wanted us to create a piece inspired by like the concept of spring. So a lot of the students, like all of the students in my class, they were like super talented. We all did like different interpretations of like spring. And I decided to do just like this woman with like flowers coming out of her hair and stuff. I was kind of experimenting because I've dabbled in watercolor, but like not with such a huge canvas. So this was definitely like new to me. And I also want to incorporate some of the things I saw in Japan while I was living there, like the lily pads, the lotus flowers, and like the koi fish that I'd see in like the little like river banks while walking to school. So I think it was like it wasn't a difficult piece, but it was definitely one that I had to like, that I had trouble getting used to. So it was really fun when I did it though. Like that's like definitely up there. And then the one on the left, that was our final like exam piece. And she wanted us to illustrate something that connects us with our experience in Japan. And personally, I felt that I had a lot of growth in Japan. So that's why I kind of have all these flowers growing outside of this like person kind of with this other like kind of like fairy looking thing right there in the corner, like just flying away kind of, you know, like kind of representing like me growing out of like this shell. Kind of each flower represents something different about an aspect of my personality. And then I added like the tree in the corner with like the sakura and stuff, just because I saw a lot of sakura trees at the time. And I was like, oh yeah, this has to go in there somewhere. You know what I mean? And yeah, those are how those 2 pieces came to be. And our teachers were like really nice, and they were very like encouraging to the students. Like they were always saying like, do your best. They would always like help us like with what we needed to work on, but always highlight our strengths as well in a sense. But yeah.
I love that. I love how you've incorporated different elements of your study abroad experience right there into your piece, right? You were there in the spring and you're incorporating spring elements, the flowers and the sakura, and talking about the change that you experienced during your own study abroad experience. That's amazing. It's a really personal piece, and I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Can you tell us more about the process for making this piece? Like what took the most time? What was most surprising?
So I think the parts that took the most time, honestly, was like if you see on the piece on the left, there's like a purple clump of flowers like in the head. Yeah, that took me like way too long. And it's only really noticeable in person. But I like when I was presenting it to my classmates, I was like, please like clap for me right now. Like this took way too long for just this little tiny space of area. But yeah, it's just like the little like details and stuff. Like you can see like in both these pieces, I have a lot of like little like strokes and stuff that took a long time. I think the most surprising part was like how we started it. They had us like wet one side of a piece of paper and put it on like a wood block, and we had to like staple it, and oh my gosh, the stapling was the hardest part because mine would like burst for some reason. Like I don't know why I was struggling, but it was really fun, like the process of like doing it, because it was really traditional and I've never done it like that before. Like usually with watercolor canvases you just buy the canvas, but like in this class we kind of made it, so it was like really interesting.
So you kind of started to touch on my next question, but can you tell us more about kind of how the learning and creating process is the same or different in Japan and the US?
So from my personal experience, I think here in America, like with the art classes I took here, they have more of like a rubric kind of for what they want you to do. Like, you know, every art teacher's like, oh, be creative, stuff like that. But like here they kind of have like a set list of what they want you to do. Over there in Japan though, they were more like really loose with it. Like I remember when they assigned these two projects, I was like the one raising my hand, like, is there like a scale? Like, do we have to have like certain things in it? They were just like, no, just do your thing. Just do your thing. And I was like, oh, okay. So I think they were definitely a lot more loose with their teaching there. Like they really just want the students to just be totally in control and like be creative with it, kind of. They like kind of stay out of what you're doing until like the very end when they're like critiquing you on stuff.
That's interesting. I know that they do have certain elements that they want you to include in the final piece, and they kind of are looking for certain things to be included. But it sounds like you're saying your instructors in the US are typically a lot more prescriptive about kind of what should be included in that final piece and how it will be assessed. So interesting. I'm gonna turn it over to our next person. If you have questions for Kendall, please put them in the chat. We'll do a Q&A at the end too. Samara, tell us about your pieces.
Yeah, so my piece is similar to Kendall. I think they're both the same assignments. So the one on the left, our teacher asked us to make a painting or illustration about the fall season, with a focus on kimonos. Actually, no, it was a kimono focused project, and I decided to focus on the changing of seasons from summer to fall. So I have the woman kind of looking out into like pale summer colors, with her kimono just as with as many fall colors as I could incorporate. And I paid a lot of attention to the folds in the kimono because we had done a demo in class and learned the layers of the kimono and what goes into the process of actually wearing one. So that was really fun to kind of take what I saw in class and apply it to a painting or an illustration. And then the one on the right, that was my final piece I worked on for class. And it was again like, what was your impression of Japan? And I decided to focus on like my daily life or a routine I had developed because I really enjoyed daily life, just like manga, anime stories. And I kind of pulled a very manga-y or comic-y setup for this, the way I told this story, which is just me like waking up pretty early, buying some snacks at the convenience store, riding on the Hankyu train to campus, which I took every day, sitting in class, and then kind of hurrying home and then calling my boyfriend on the phone. So that's what that was my daily life for majority of the time I was there.
That's fantastic. What a great memory. And I can see like your whole like experience in these pictures, right? Like you've got the everyday piece of it, the personal piece, the academic piece, but you've also got like the learning about the traditional aspect and how to depict the kimono and what those folds look like. And this is really gorgeous. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I love that you brought so many of your own interests and passions into these pieces. Can you tell us about the process of making these pieces?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go please.
So with the piece on the left, that was the first time I think I fully dove into using full watercolor for an artwork as like the main medium. And it was something I never really had done before. So it was kind of a learning curve, but our teacher was very good and patient and willing to teach us all the little tricks. Like there was ways to almost erase watercolor from paper, which I had never really known. And that was really cool. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I had proportions right because that was something we had learned about, just like the structure of the body. I used like my own hand to model the hand you see there. And I just really wanted the focus to be on the kimono. So that's why there are so many painstakingly little flowers drawn in order. And then for the comic sized piece, I kind of started that one by drawing the frame of it. I struggled a lot to figure out what I wanted this final piece to be because it was the last thing I would work on, the last thing I would show, and I wanted it to kind of show everything I've learned over the course of the semester. So I tried to do as many different watercolor techniques as I could. I tried my best to, while stay with a comic-y style, also to get a little bit more realistic, like with the little hand holding a ring on the Hankyu train, just right above that. And yeah, I think once I got my idea for what I wanted to do, I was able to plan out the panels and section out what I wanted to get done in the class.
That's really interesting that you shared about being conscious of the proportions and making sure that you get the proportions right and being conscious of the modeling. I know that's a big part of the class as well. So it's great to see that really reflected consciously in these pieces. It's also really interesting to me that both you and Kendall mentioned that you'd never really done much work in watercolor and that this was a new experience for both of you. That's really fascinating. How much exposure to art and creating art did you have before coming to Japan? How was the learning process the same or different?
Yeah, so I kind of always grew up in an artsy household, and just my mom was always into like, yeah, craft, do that, you go girl type of thing. And then in college was like the first time I was taking art classes as kind of a more serious, like, oh, I could probably maybe get something out of this, and I wanted to learn more. I'm sure in the US, like, or even at my college, we have like kind of figure drawing, but at the CET character design, it was my first time like learning just basic anatomy. And even though we only spent maybe like a week or two learning just bone structure and how muscles lay on your body and like how like muscles move depending on your posture, it was able to really, really improve how I can draw just human forms, which I wouldn't say I was great at before coming, but after just a quick little like, oh, just adjust that part needs to be just a little bit bigger just because that's how it is on your body. It was like, duh, like no wonder it looks so like silly here, and just like a little tweak can make such a big difference. But that was the one thing I really liked about this class as opposed to other ones. Just because when I thought character design, I kind of thought more cartoony. Like I thought like it might be more anime style. But it was really fun to learn like first class, we're gonna learn the skeleton. I was like, okay, crap. Here we go.
That's really wonderful. Thank you for sharing. It's really interesting to hear that you had kind of a casual background in art, just from being in an artsy household and being exposed to crafty things coming up, but that this was your first real character design class. Like anybody could really take this class. You don't have to be an art major to take this class. So that's really reassuring, especially as somebody who's not an art person myself. So thank you for sharing this and for sharing these pieces. I'm going to turn over to Peyton. Peyton, tell us about your pieces. What's the inspiration, the story, the message?
So I was going based off of Japanese mythology. This is also my final project. Because it was basically just like our experiences in Japan, and I'm very into Japanese mythology in general. So my piece ended up being a kitsune spirit who is leading you off to the underworld, was my idea.
I love that you incorporated your own interest in mythology, and you presumably also had the same prompt about kind of what is your your final takeaway from Japan, and what you were saying about kind of leading you away, right? That's really great. I love that you've kind of incorporated both of those together. Can you discuss the process of making this piece? What took the most time? What was surprising?
Okay, the details definitely took the most time. I remember like working on this like at my share house like for a couple hours, like pretty much every day for a while to finish it off. Getting the big picture done wasn't very long, but like all the details took significantly longer. Like getting the basic shapes and everything didn't take very long as compared to getting all the details right.
That tracks with what Samara and Kendall were saying too, with all the detail on the kimono and then the flower too. We can't take all of that detail for granted, and I think a lot of us often do. It looks really great, really makes or breaks a piece, I think. Peyton, tell us about what kind of exposure to art you had before coming to CET, and how the learning and creating process was the same or different.
I actually had a bit more exposure to the digital side of art as opposed to traditional. Because for my major, I've taken a figure drawing class before, and also just like a basic drawing class. This was like a combination of those along with some extra traditional skills to me. It also like helped me reinforce those skills since I've been slightly out of practice. It did help that I also knew anatomy from my figure drawing class to do this piece.
Fascinating. So sounds like you had taken some courses, but there was still some new content and reinforcing of content that meant it was still a great opportunity for you to continue to grow as an artist and in your major. That's really fantastic. Thank you. So we are going to jump back to the kind of program overall. So if you're thinking that you'd love to go to Japan, you'd love to study abroad in Japan, but you can't afford it, I want to draw your attention to some scholarship opportunities. So CET offers scholarships. FEA also has access partner scholarships for CET students, and there are a lot of external scholarships. The Bridging Scholarship just opened. The fees for the program are on our website, but what you see there might not actually be what you pay, given your own homeschool's financial policies and whatever scholarships you get. Depending on your homeschool's policies, your financial aid might be able to travel with you. So Kendall, Samara, Peyton, as people are writing down all of these scholarships, tell us why you chose to go on the CET Japan program. Just go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself if you feel so moved to jump in.
I can kind of start. So I chose CET because I liked that this program specifically was based in Osaka. To me, Tokyo, or the programs that I was looking at that were based in Tokyo, just felt a little bit too intimidating. Plus, with Osaka being super close to Kyoto and Kobe, it was always it seemed like it'd be easy to get stuff or do stuff with people on the weekends, which it was. Like, I was doing stuff all the time on the weekends. I also chose CET because of the language pledge. I really wanted to push myself to learn and practice as much as I could with Japanese being one of my majors. And I just can't get what I did get in Japan in the US. Just that 24/7 exposure it's tough, but it works. Yeah.
Osaka is definitely a great place for both of those things. As somebody who lived in Osaka, I am definitely Osaka biased. But I like to say that Osaka has everything that Tokyo has, but on a more manageable basis. And Osaka people are known for being especially friendly and outgoing. So it's a great place to be a study abroad student. And there's less English spoken too. So you will really get to practice your Japanese. So that's really great to hear. Thank you. Kendall or Peyton, why did you choose CET Japan?
A lot of it was because of the art side of it for me. I wanted to work on my Japanese, and also just like the side benefit of also being able to improve my art skills worked out a lot for me.
Fantastic. I'm glad that you could enjoy the course and improve your art. That's great. Kendall?
So I personally chose it just because, well, at first my roommate at the time gave it to me, and I wasn't going to go for it until like my Japanese teacher at the time, she was saying that, oh, you should totally go to Osaka. They're so nice. The food is the best, yada, yada. And I was like, all right, you know what? You're selling me, Reiko-san. I think I will go. And I remember like one of the big highlights for me was the language pledge as well, because I really wanted to learn, and I was taking a class prior, and I was like, I think I could really learn, you know? And I had a friend who we studied abroad at the same time, coincidentally, but she was in Tokyo while I was in Osaka, and her program didn't have a language pledge, and they like taught in English and stuff. And I think I would just rather like try to assimilate more into the culture to like really like be able to learn. You know what I mean? And I also liked the staff was really helpful. Like they helped me with like scholarships and filling out everything, getting my visa, and like, yeah, I would do it again.
I'm so glad to hear that. You know, you go all the way to Japan, right? Sekkaku Nihon ni iku kara, right? You want to learn as much Japanese as you can. You want to live your life in Japanese as much as you possibly can, and you want to really make the most of that. It sounds like you really did. That's really wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Kendall, can you keep going for us? What was your biggest takeaway from this program?
Ooh, that's really hard. I'm not gonna lie. Oh my gosh. You know what? I think my biggest takeaway from it was like all the connections that I made. Like I met like so many people while there. Like I knew everyone in the program, and then knew like 4 or 5 of the Japanese students as well. And I was like, I'm very extroverted. So like I just really enjoyed like meeting a lot of people and like connecting with others. And like every weekend I'd be like, hit up someone random, be like, you know what, you go to this cafe with me, or you come to Kobe with me, stuff like that. And I really value the connections that I made that I still have right now. Like I just got a notification from one of my friends in Japan actually. And like I'm still friends with a lot of the other CET students as well, because we're all in like the Maryland area. So like I meet up with some of them sometimes.
I love that. Those friendships that you make when you're studying abroad in a new environment together, literally living in close quarters together, those are really precious. It sounds like you really made some wonderful friendships while you were there. Thank you for sharing that. Samara or Peyton, how about you? What were one of your biggest takeaways?
One of my biggest takeaways on top of like making all of these friends and just like building a community was, I guess it was kind of being part of a community that was all working towards a similar goal of just self-improvement in Japanese language. Um, because it was tough, and I think everybody could agree, like no matter what level, because there's all these different course levels, like everybody was struggling at some point, and just being in that together and just like, yeah, you got it. Like, God, do you want to go meet somewhere and we can just hash it out? Um, it just felt really special and it really was such a unique experience. And I think that in itself helped um, grow because like it was like motivation to like, oh, I want to be able to like speak to these people, be able to talk and communicate and like show my personality. Um, and so that was definitely a big takeaway, just being a part of that. Like, I want to get better with everybody.
I love that. The like-minded community and how you support each other through this journey. That's really fantastic. How about you, Peyton? What were one of your biggest takeaways?
I agree with Samara with the community part, and also in my case, a bit of independence, I guess is the way to describe it. Because I was more of a solo traveler, so I learned a lot about actually solo traveling by myself and like planning those things out. Especially since I could do a lot of like weekend trips and just be gone for a day or two. It's really nice, actually.
I love that. The personal goals there too, and the learning how to do things independently and doing things on your own, maybe for the first time. That's really great. There might be a little overlap here with this question. So chime in, whoever has something, if you don't want to, if they're you don't feel pressured. What was a biggest challenge or a biggest success from while you were studying abroad?
For me, it's always hard jumping in on a Zoom call. Um, for me, I think my biggest challenge and biggest success were one and the same, and that was Japanese language learning. Um, it was super tough. It was the first time I felt like I don't know anything, and that was a really hard thing to get over, especially in the beginning. Just like this insecurity of like, oh my God, I don't know anything. I'm the dumbest one in class. I'm not gonna be able to talk to anybody. I'm not gonna make friends. But give it a week, like after a week, and after I like kind of talk to friends back home, and they're like, just, it's okay. You're gonna be fine. I was like, okay. And then you're able to make friends and just help each other get better. And that felt like a big success because at the end, you can notice like things that you struggled with at the beginning, or like you had to flip through a textbook to be like, what was that again? What was that again? It just becomes second nature. And that's just like, oh my God, that I just feel so good.
That really tracks from my own experience of studying and living in Japan. Kendall and Peyton, I nod your head, Kendall, if this also tracks for you. The struggle at the beginning is so real, and it is so shocking how little you understand but then suddenly, like Samara was saying, you just start getting it. And it's so hard, but once you have that aha moment, it's absolutely gorgeous. So I totally relate to that. Thank you for sharing that. Kendall or Peyton, did you have anything you wanted to share about a challenge or a success?
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with Samara with the whole at the first you have no idea what you're doing. And then by the end you're like, oh, I got this. My biggest success I would say was the second conversation test when I felt like I was on the ball and could get responses to everything. That was like such a great moment for me. I was like, yes, understanding is on the way.
Love that. Kendall, anything from you?
Basically the same as Samara, and hers is much smarter sounding than mine. I was gonna say my biggest struggle was the train. Like that was embarrassing. The first day I got lost for like 2 hours, and I was just going back and forth between these two cities, except for the middle, which is where I wanted to be. And like I called one of the instructors. I was like, please. And I like FaceTimed him. I'm like, this is the train, right? And he's like, yep, that's the train. I get on it. It was not the train at all. So I kept going back and forth. So that was my challenge, figuring out the trains. That was embarrassing. Oh my gosh. I just hope the conductors don't remember me.
I have been there too. I have absolutely done the exact same thing. And I know the station, that Awaji train, right? Yeah, yep. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep. Okay, so as we wrap things up and then turn it over to Q&A from the audience, tell us, what are your plans for the future? Do they involve Japan? Do they involve art? Tell us what your plans for the future are. Peyton, you want to start us off this time?
I want to become a concept artist for video games is my current plan. If everything goes well, I'm graduating next semester. So currently trying to do internships this summer and see where that takes me is the current plan.
Fantastic. That sounds really exciting. Definitely using the art, depending on which video game company you land with, maybe even using the Japan connection too. That's great. Samara?
Yeah, I would love to come back to Japan in the future, but for vacation instead of school. Um, I'm still figuring out what kind of career I would like to do, but I would love to stay in the realm of art and Japanese, possibly teaching. I don't know yet. But while in Japan, we took a lot of field trips to just local schools, and I think my favorite one was the elementary school. They're that age group is just so funny. And so that was like, oh, maybe I could teach art. Like this seems like I would really like it. Yeah, still thinking about it.
I love that. It sounds like you want to have some sort of connection to Japan, whether it's traveling there, you're interested maybe in teaching, maybe continuing art. Maybe it sounds like you want to look into the JET program. Sounds like lots of great opportunities and that could be right ahead of you. That's great. Kendall, how about you?
So my major is animation, but I kind of like just want to do anything under the art branch. I definitely would love to come back to Japan, maybe like as an intern or something like that. I was looking at the JET program, but I'm waiting on that for a while. But yeah, I would definitely like to come to Japan. I definitely looking into the realm of like comics, comics and graphics and character design, also concept art. Like even now, like I'm literally working on like a, a mock manga for my class right now, and hopefully doing well. Thanks to that character design class, though, that was really helpful. That definitely gave me like a leg up in the art department, I think.
I love it. Well, when you publish your first manga or your first video game or you have your first solo show, whatever it is, I can't wait to say that I knew them when. So best of luck on your next steps. I know you're going to just do amazing things. Can't wait to hear all about it. So as we wrap up, I want everybody to take note of application deadlines here. Be sure to also check deadlines at your home institution as well, since you'll need to go through their process. Kendall, Samara, Peyton, final words of parting advice as Malika then starts to moderate the chat for us. What words of advice would you like to share with prospective students?
Just do it. Just do it. Just go for it. Like, literally don't be like, a month or 4 months in Japan. No, just do it. Just do it. I'm telling you, life-changing.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah. And when you do it, right? If you go in the fall, it's so hot. Like, it's so hot at the start, and then it gets so cold at the end. Just pack accordingly. This is my first time in Japan, and I tried looking up because I knew Japan was hot, but it's so much hotter than you think it is. Pack accordingly. That is my advice.
I see Malika giggling over there in the corner because she lived it, so she knows.
It's bad, and it's like muggy as well. Unfortunately, you can't really choose a semester like spring, summer, and fall. They all have good weather and they all have bad weather. So sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm definitely biased. I'm biased because I'm from Texas. Because literally, it wasn't like the heat. It was just the humidity. The heat was fine. The humidity was rough. And other tip of advice, like, you know more than you think you do.
I love that. Trust yourself, right? You know more than you think you do. That's great. Okay, we're going to open it up for questions from the chat. Malika, what do we got?
We don't have anything in the chat yet, so please take this time to go into the chat or the Q&A section to pop your questions in there. We got a couple of questions before the webinar started, and a couple of them were about program finances. So I went ahead and put a few links into the chat. I hope everyone can see them. Links to like the program finance pages, but also to CET scholarships. I'm going to put one more link in the chat right now. This is a link to register for an upcoming webinar. It's held at the exact same time next Wednesday, so exactly a week from now. It's with our finance manager at CET. She knows everything there is to know about scholarships and finances and study abroad and FAFSA and how all that stuff ties together. So if study abroad finances are something that you're worried about, definitely check out that webinar. Even if you can't attend, just like today, you can ask for the recording. I got a couple of questions in the chat already about, one is, did anyone in the panel have previous experience with the Japanese language?
Yes, I studied it all through high school, and I just finished the minor in it for college. So quite a bit, actually, yeah.
I started learning Japanese in college. That was the first time I learned how to write my name in katakana. So I thought I was like underprepared, or I wouldn't be ready for this program, but they do have course load and coursework suitable for anyone at their level.
I had like 2 chapters of Japanese down. Like, I was a beginner. I only knew like the very basics and like how to read hiragana and katakana. But you can be an absolute beginner and then you're gonna come out like fluent. I'm telling you, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, so like you heard, we've got lots of different language course options. You can be an absolute beginner, somebody who's never even opened up a textbook, never done a Duolingo or anything like that. Or we've got all the way up through 5th year Japanese. So people who have taken the equivalent of probably 10 plus semesters, college level semesters of Japanese. So we've got a course for literally any language ability.
Awesome. Thanks, panel. I can also speak from my own experience that I had studied Japanese for a couple of semesters before I had started it's CET Japan. I've got two questions that are pretty related. One is about confirmed course lists for the future, and one is about the curriculum that's not art related. So I'm posting the link to the CET Japan website, which has an overview of the CET Japan curriculum. So our program, Kate, do you want to go into this? It doesn't really change that much from year to year, so you can kind of get the basic information about the courses that are available now. Even if you're planning to study abroad 2 years from now, it will be very similar. But Kate, do you want to talk about the curriculum for students not interested in art courses?
Yes, if you don't want to take art courses, that's completely fine. You're choosing then between 12 or 6 credits of Japanese, and then you're loading up on direct enroll electives. So then you're choosing whatever combination of courses that are of interest to you. Language electives obviously are Japanese language electives. Those are 1.5 credits. Area studies electives can be in lots of different fields, all related to Japan, right? So Japanese business, environmental studies related to Japan, history related to Japan, pop culture related to Japan, all sorts of different disciplines, but with a Japan focus. So then you would probably take, depending, again, if you take the 6 credits or 12 credits of Japanese, you would take between 1 to 3 of those area studies direct enroll electives.
Thanks, Kate. Question about the language placement process. How do students get placed into a level of Japanese classes?
Yeah, so when you apply to the program, you'll submit your transcript, which if you've taken Japanese courses before will include your grade. If you've taken Japanese courses before, you'll have your Japanese professor submit a recommendation. And then there will also, if you've taken Japanese courses before, you'll answer a whole bunch of questions and do a quick writing sample in Japanese. So based on the information in those 3 things, we give you a tentative placement. And then there's a period on site when you can switch around your level if that's not the correct one. If you think it's higher than it needs to be or lower than it needs to be, there's kind of an adjustment period. So that's how the placement process works.
Thanks. I got a question in the chat, and a similar question before the session is about courses related to a specific field. Like, do we offer any math courses at CET Japan, and do we offer any education courses at CET Japan?
So OGU, our partner university, has never offered math courses. Education courses, I don't think that they've ever offered, but I will say that pre-COVID, OGU was pretty consistent in offering the same courses. Every fall, they would offer more or less the same courses. Every spring, they would offer more or less the same courses. Since COVID, they've been trying to get on that new norm. And so there are new courses now that we didn't have pre-COVID. So just because we don't have an education course now doesn't mean there won't be one in the future. But it's also kind of hard to predict what OGU will or won't have, especially if you need something for like graduation requirement.
Thanks. Those are the questions that we have in the chat so far. We've got about 5 minutes left in the hour. So if anyone has any questions, definitely pop them in the chat or in the Q&A. Kate, we did have a question about kind of, are there any specific, this is a question that came in before the session. Are there any specific majors that, like, do you need to be of a specific major to do this program?
Any major is fine. And, you know, we get a lot of even computer science majors who they love Japan, they love, you know, Japanese and anime, manga, and they've always wanted to study in Japan and they've never been able to make it work, but they work with their advisors to figure out how to make it work, right? So even though they're not taking a computer science course or, you know, a math course that term, they can still stay on track. We get a lot of Japanese language majors, a lot of art majors. Samara, Kendall, Peyton, Malika, what do you remember from when you were on site for common majors? But they really come all across the board, I feel like.
Oh, my roommate, he was like a computer science major. I knew someone who was it was mainly computer science. I think one of them was architecture. I don't remember. But yeah, it wasn't just like art students. There were also like different other like studies that I remember meeting too.
I think
I
there
remember a
were.
couple being
Oh,
international studies too. Sorry. Like I remember a couple of international studies, and I feel like I also heard history. Maybe.
yeah, I remember someone being history. There were a handful of like art and like maybe not advertising, but like kind of I don't even know. Like, I don't know any majors outside of mine. Oh my gosh. like like creative majors, and there were like a couple people that were like just crazy smart and like STEM and just sciences and like bio, like oh my gosh. Um but yeah, it did seem like there was a large pool of people.
That was my experience when I was abroad as well. I was a psychology major with a Japanese language minor. And a lot of my classmates were like, there were some that were definitely like Asian studies, Japanese. There were some political science and international studies. I had a couple of engineers, like majors that had nothing to do with Japanese language. And then art as well, I think was most of my cohort was some kind of combination of those. Well, that's it for questions in the chat, and we are about a couple minutes until the end of the session. So do you want to wrap us up, Kate?
Yeah, I'm just going to show this gorgeous artwork one more time so we can give Kendall and Samara and Peyton one last round of applause. Their amazing artwork, sharing their wonderful experiences with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a real treat to get to see these pieces and hear your stories. So glad that you had such a wonderful experience in Osaka. I hope that you continue to have a relationship with Japan, and you get to really highlight your artwork going forwards. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are a student thinking about coming to Japan, please scan this QR code and reach out to learn more. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.